Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I always welcome the opportunity to rise in this place on behalf of the good people of Scarborough Centre. And today, I rise to speak to a very important piece of legislation, the Budget Implementation Act, which I believe contains a host of measures that speak to the concerns they share with me every day. When I'm attending events, knocking on doors, or meeting with constituents, they often talk to me about the cost of living. And this is an overarching issue that manifests itself in many ways. A long-standing issue of concern is access to safe, adequate, and affordable housing. Rental housing, when it can even be found, is even more unaffordable and often old and inadequate to the families that want to call our community home. And the dream of home ownership, once considered a birthright for hardworking Canadians, is becoming for many a seemingly impossible dream. It's part of the larger issue of affordability in many aspects of everyday life. While the data shows that Canada has fared better than most other G7 countries when it comes to inflation, that's little comfort to my constituents who go to the grocery store and find so much of their paycheck just going to put food on the table. And it has my constituents looking wearily to the future. Will they ever be able to get ahead of the daily grind? Will they be able to find money to save for their future, to put away for their children's education? It's because of concerns like these that the government is laser-focused, including in Budget 2023, on affordability. With our Made in Canada plan, Budget 2023 will ensure that Canadians have more money in their pockets and meeting the challenges of today and tomorrow while building a Canada that is more secure, more sustainable, and more affordable for people from coast to coast to coast. Let's start with everyday expenses. While our opponents across the way want to lower taxes for the wealthiest 1% and hope the money will somehow trickle down to the middle class and those working hard to join. Decades of failed conservative economic policy shows that doesn't work. Instead, our government is focused on delivering targeted inflation relief directly to the most vulnerable Canadians to help support them with their cost of living. That's why, in Budget 2023, our government is providing new targeted inflation relief to the Canadians hardest hit by rising food prices. Budget 2023 introduces one-time grocery rebate, providing $2.5 billion in targeted inflation relief for 11 million low and modest income Canadians and families. The grocery rebate will provide eligible couples with 2 children with up to an extra $467, single Canadians without children with up to extra $234, and seniors with an extra $225 on average. An individual or family would have to be entitled to the GST credit in January 2023 and have filed a 2021 tax return in order to receive the grocery rebate. This additional support would be delivered by the Canada Revenue Agency as soon as possible following the passage of legislation using the GST credit system. Shortly after the budget was released, I visited Athia's Fresh Farm, a grocery store in my riding, with the Minister of Transport to talk about the grocery rebate. I spoke with several mothers who told me how the extra help from the grocery rebate would allow them to make better choices when doing the family's grocery shopping. For families in my riding, this will mean being able to buy healthier options and more fruits and vegetables instead of just cheaper, less nutritious processed food. That's especially important for children and ensuring they have the energy they need to grow and be active, as well as succeed in their schooling. And speaking of schooling, with Budget 2023, we are also making it easier for families to save for and invest in their children's futures. We are proposing to improve registered education saving plans by increasing limits on certain RESP withdrawals from $5,000 to $8,000 for full-time students and from $2,500 to $4,000 for part-time students. And we are proposing to allow divorced or separated parents to open a joint RESP for their children, which will make it easier and more affordable for parents to save for their children's education. We are also increasing Canada student grants by 40%, providing up to $4,200 for full-time students. We are raising the interest-free Canada student loan limit from $210 to $300 per week of study. And we are waiving the requirements for mature students aged 22 years or older to undergo credit screening in order to qualify for federal and student grants and loans for the first time. This will allow up to 1,000 additional students to benefit from federal aid in the coming year. This follows other supports for students announced by our government, including permanently eliminating interest on Canada student loans and ensuring borrowers do not need to make payments on their loans until they earn at least $40,000 per year. And we are committed to working with students in the years ahead to develop a long-term approach to student financial assistance in time for Budget 2024. Also on affordability, I have already seen in my community how the Canadian Dental Care Plan is making a difference for lower-income families. It's allowing families that had been putting off dental care for their children to be able to get their children in to see a dentist and make their oral care a priority. Dental care is health care, and an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. By expanding the program this year to include seniors and other low-income Canadians, we are both helping make life more affordable and ensuring healthy outcomes for more Canadians. I would also like to talk about housing, which I have said is a real issue for my constituents. While the Conservatives did nothing on housing for a decade and still like to pretend the rental market doesn't exist, our government takes a holistic approach to housing that includes both homeowners and renters. Everyone should have a safe and affordable place to call home. However, far too many Canadians, including young people and new Canadians, the dream of owning a home is increasingly out of reach, and paying rent has become more expensive across the country. Centered by the National Housing Strategy over the past year, the federal government has taken significant steps towards making housing more affordable for Canadians, and we are building on that in Budget 2023 by announcing that financial institutions will be able to start offering the tax-free first home savings account to Canadians as of April 1st, 2023, publishing a guideline to protect Canadians with mortgages who are facing exceptional circumstances, and committing an additional $4 billion to CMHC to implement a core-developed urban, rural, and northern Indigenous housing strategy. This builds on other measures we have taken, such as a 2-year ban on non-resident, non-Canadians purchasing residential property, a 1% annual underused housing tax on the value of the non-resident, non-Canadian owned residential property that is vacant or underused, a new tax-free first home savings account to allow Canadians to save up to $40,000 tax-free to help buy their first home, accelerator fund to remove barriers and incentivize housing supply growth with the goal of creating at least 100,000 net new homes across Canada, and much more. As I have said before, Mr. Speaker, no one level of government holds the key to solving the housing crisis in Canada. It will take cities, provinces, and the federal government all working together. There is still much more to do, but I am glad that after a conservative decade of darkness, Canada again has a government that is willing to partner in housing. While our government is focused on programs that make life more affordable for Canadians, such as dental care and childcare, the opposition on the other side is opposing us every step of the way. The Leader of the Opposition even called a childcare plan, which is saving families hundreds of dollars every month, a slush fund. It is clear who is looking out for Canadian families. Mr. Speaker, let's pass this budget and keep the focus on affordability for everyday Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.